Hello, once again, this is Black Exile, Chief Editor at HailToTheMischief.com, and I want to welcome you back for Lesson 2 on Social Security. This one is called the Social Security Income Comparison, and in my opinion, this one is just as eye-opening as the first one, so without any further ado, let's just jump into it, shall we? So, there's going to be some assumptions I want to make here, and the first one is the assumption that you have watched the first video. If you have not watched the first video, please go back and watch it because everything we talk about is going to build on that knowledge base to begin with. The second thing is that the market, when I refer to the market, I'm talking about the S&P 500 with dividends reinvested. And lastly, when I talk about Social Security income, I'm talking about the average Social Security retirement check. And I got that amount from the Social Security website. Again, that one is on the first video. Please go back and take a look at it. So the last time we were here, I showed you how the Social Security contributions from a household earning $50,000 a year can grow to staggering amounts if invested in the market. I used actual simulations over 44-year time frames, and I went through one of those simulations with you year by year. Again, if you missed that, go back and watch the first video. However, the comparison wasn't completely accurate because it was more like an apples to cars comparison. For it to be effective, the comparison must be made using two virtually identical concepts, and that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. We're going to use identical concepts so that we can have a comparison here. And in the last comparison, we compared a lump sum of cash to an income stream. So to make a fair comparison, we have to know how much income can safely be generated from a lump sum of cash. To come up with that, we have to use a concept called the sustainable rate of withdrawal. A sustainable rate of withdrawal is an amount that can safely be withdrawn from an account without the risk of exhausting that account over time. Now, there are a lot of opinions on what a safe rate is, but the range tends to vary between 3 and 7%. We're going to use 4% to be conservative. So to compare a lump sum or to compare a sustainable rate of withdrawal, we take that lump sum of cash, we multiply it by a sustainable rate of withdrawal, in this case 4%, and we come up with a yearly sustainable income for that lump sum of cash. So if you remember this from the last slide, this shows how much a family earning $50,000 a year with their Social Security contributions going into the market, how much that would have grown to over 44 years using the time frames you see before you. So I'm just going to use these numbers. Again, if you don't know how I got to these numbers, go back to the first video. So using the first one, which was Barack Obama's birth date, which grew to $6,129,883. Jeez. If you use that amount on the sustainable withdrawal rate, you find that that supports an income of $245,195 a year. If you use Hillary Clinton's birth month with $7,219,850, the supportable income on an annual basis is $285,194. If you use Bernie Sanders' birth month with $6,405,926, the sustainable annual income is $256,000. If you use Al Sharpton's, my goodness, sometimes just saying his name makes me a little nauseous, but if you use his birth month with $8,430,099, you come up with a sustainable income rate of $337,204. That's a lot of cheddar. So if you remember this slide, this showed the average return over 420 time periods, the best return I could find over that time period, and the worst return I could find over that time period. If I simply take those values and do the same thing with them, I find that the best possible scenario since 1937 yielded an annual income of $439,166. Again, this is using Social Security contributions from a household earning $50,000 a year. The worst case scenario, $2,951,531, still generated $118,061 a year. And that is if you retired during the housing crash. That is still how much you got. The average return, $6,489,502, still generated $259,580. For comparison's sake, ladies and gentlemen, the Social Security annual income average is $16,104. This is a pittance compared to what the market return in every scenario, best case, worst case, average, and anything that you can possibly come up with during those simulations. The Social Security annual average return, $16,104. Now, the conclusions that I want to draw from here. The S&P 500 with dividends reinvested outperformed Social Security on average by a factor of 16. And there wasn't one 44-year period where the middle class was not rich by Democrat standards. What do I mean by that? There wasn't one time where the stock market didn't turn the middle class, average middle class family into millionaires and billionaires, as Bernie Sanders would say. He didn't. Every one of these time periods turned the middle class person into an enemy because it made you rich. Now, lastly, Democrats either know about this or they don't. Now, obviously, that's pretty brilliant, but it has implications, right? If they don't know, what does that mean? That without the aid of all of the finance and economic people they have at their disposal, I was able to discover this, and they haven't. Now, if they do know, well, that's a lot harder to swallow, isn't it? It means that they're purposely denying middle class families from acquiring assets, substantial private property assets, which can provide for a very comfortable retirement. Now, they wouldn't do something like that, would they? They're obviously in this only to help middle class and working families. They wouldn't do anything that would limit the private property to make your life a little bit easier. I mean, they just wouldn't do something like that, would they? I, would they? Oh, I don't know. I'll let you think about it. But I want to put out there that past performance is not indicative of future results. And no, this is not a recommendation. I still haven't given you my recommendation of how I would fix this. But this is not a recommendation, obviously, because you can't take this money and invest it in the stock market. So make sure that you like this video, post a comment, and tell me what I'm missing. Tell me where I'm going wrong. Subscribe to this channel, and if you want to continue the conversation, make sure you subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you soon. All right, take care.